It's something we never seem to have enough of in El Paso, and we're not getting any more of it soon. And no, the answer isn't money. It's water. And as we head into the hottest months of the year, we could all use a little heads up about what's coming our way as we welcome Christina Montoya, the Communications and Marketing Manager at El Paso Water. I'm Duke Keith, and this is El Paso Town Square. Duke Keith along with Christina Montoya, Communications and Marketing Manager at El Paso Water. And this is the time we need to be speaking to you, Christina, because it's getting hot, it's getting dry, and things really aren't going to change that much, are they?
No, it doesn't look like a lot of precipitation is in the immediate forecast. So you're right. It's going to stay hot and dry. But I think we're used to that here in El Paso.
We kind of are. I do remember I moved here in 1990, and I remember the next year, the watering 3 days a week and some of the conservation measures really went into effect. And judging from what you guys at El Paso Water have kind of discussed, it's been pretty effective, decently effective at helping us conserve what we do have, which isn't much, honestly.
Right. Absolutely. I was just talking with someone the other day about, that we celebrated the 30th anniversary, if you can believe it, of the city's water conservation ordinance back in, 1991. And it's just amazing to see what we've accomplished. We've reduced the per capita water consumption by over 30%. El Pasoans have just really embraced conservation, and we're so proud of that. I go to conferences, water conferences throughout Texas and other parts of the country, and they're just barely, in the past few years, implementing watering schedules and time of day schedules, and they're surprised to hear that we've been doing it for 30 years. So it really is a testament to our customers that have really embraced it and follow it, and we just want to tell them, please keep up the good work that you're doing, because we really do need it.
Absolutely, and the subject of discussion is the drought conditions and what you can do, what we can all do to kind of help conserve what little we do have. And one of the concerns I know that you've brought up through El Paso Water, and one of the concerns El Paso Water has, is that we're not going to get much river runoff this year. Like usually it's a longer season that we get where they open up the floodgates up the way at Caballo and Elephant Butte Dam. And we get a pretty good season of river water coming through. That is not going to be the case this year, correct?
That is correct. And you probably, if you've driven by any of the riverbeds over in Sunland Park or anywhere in the lower valley, they are dry. And normally at this time of the year, we would be seeing river water. A normal river water season for us is March through October.
Wow.
We haven't had that for a few years. So last year, I think we were May to, I think, end of August. But this year, we're looking at not really welcoming that river water into our plants until early June. And the last I heard is the good news is it may last until August. We were before hearing that it would only be, 6 to 8 weeks, but it looks like it might go a little longer. So at any rate, it's a lot less water than we're used to seeing in a normal year.
How much is there kind of a percentage set on that? Like how much less will it be?
Yeah, a normal year, and for your listeners who aren't aware, we use groundwater. We have wells all over El Paso, and we also use river water. When we have it, we want to use it because it's more sustainable. Our aquifers don't recharge, so we want to try to preserve those aquifers for as long as we possibly can. So in a normal year with a normal allotment, we would get 50% of our water supply for the year from the river.
Wow.
But this year it's going to be more like 10 to 15%. And so what that means is that, we will just kind of alternate. We'll switch. We'll use those groundwater sources that we have. We have the desalination plant that really is there to help us in situations like this. It treats that brackish, salty water that otherwise would be unusable, and we'll pump it up to full capacity and use it. We also went ahead and added a lot of new wells throughout the city, 6 additional wells to increase our groundwater supply. But then we also have gone in, and a lot of the wells that sometimes are not working as well. We have 60 to 80 wells throughout the city, where we've been going in and rehabilitating them, looking at them. So we have operations crew that's going out looking at all of these wells every week. They started since October, really, knowing that this was going to happen and knowing that we're going to need to put a lot of these wells in service that otherwise we wouldn't if we had that river water. So we're doing a lot on our end, El Paso Water is, but we also need the public's help just to continue that conservation because that is a part of the strategy.
And what can we do as El Pasoans to kind of help things along? Obviously, there's been the watering schedules we've talked about since 1991, and that's helped an awful lot. But what else can we do? Especially, if you've got, I've got landscaping in my front yard and grass in my back, such as that grass is. But is there anything further that you can do if you're in a situation where you've got what you've got in your house? What can El Pasoans do to kind of help things a little bit?
Well, one thing that we're encouraging our customers to do is, and I know I'm doing it here at my house, I've got kind of the same situation. We've got desert landscaping in the front. We do have a lawn in the back. But, the watering schedule allows you to water 3 days a week. It's depending on your address.
Sure.
You either water Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. But you don't necessarily have to water all 3 days. You can water your lawn 1 to 2 days a week, and it can do okay if you do it right. If you check your irrigation system, make sure your sprinklers are working correctly. There's even a really cool tuna can test you can do, and we have a video on our website at epwater.org where you can, first of all, take a screwdriver and put it in your grass, and if it doesn't go in all the way, that's a good indicator that, yes, your lawn is thirsty. But if the screwdriver goes in pretty easily, that's an indicator that maybe you can wait another couple days before watering. And when you do, you take those tuna cans and you place them out when you put your sprinkler on. And when the sprinkler fills it up all the way, that's about enough water, about an inch of water that you need, and you can turn off your sprinklers. So those are kind of easy little things that we're suggesting to our customers. We don't have to water all 3 days a week. You can try to be most efficient with it that you can. If you haven't already installed drip irrigation into your desert landscaping in the front, do it. You will save a lot of money on your bill too, which is really important, but you also save water. And then another big thing that people don't think about, and I really religiously remind my family, my parents and my neighbors that, you don't want to water after 10 a.m. and you don't want to water, after 10 a.m. and before 6 p.m. because that's the hottest part of the day, especially right now. Like I'm looking outside and it's getting hot.
Sure.
And so when you water, that's evaporating. So you're wasting water, you're running up your bill, and you're really not giving your landscape the water that it needs. So do it in the morning, do it after 6 p.m. And they seem like little things, but they really can make a big difference. If everybody does something, then you can really make a big difference.
Speaking with Christina Montoya, Communications and Marketing Manager at El Paso Water. This is really cool, and I need to check out the video, the tuna can test and the screwdriver test. Again, it's epwater.org. It's cheap, it's easy to do, and it's pretty effective in telling you what your lawn needs or what it already has. This is something I think that we can all get behind, because I think everybody understands we live in a desert, and it's just going to be more of a challenge here than it is in other places. And I know, when you go to water conferences across Texas, it's got to be very different for places that are used to big lush green lawns and just doing whatever you want to do. But we are in a severe drought and have been for a long time. What are you, and I'm sure El Paso Water looks at this, what are kind of the long-term outlook? What is the long-term outlook for where we're going to be? What this is going to be like? Is this the new normal?
It's funny that you asked, because we did just have a meeting this morning, and one of our water resources manager did say, we really, we need to inform the public too that this is the new normal. I mean, we are always in a drought. That's the mindset. We live in the Chihuahuan Desert. We get 8 to 9 inches of rainfall a year. That's it. And so we need to really just operate that way. And so for that being said, I mean, we have something called a 50-year water plan that we have to turn in to the state every 4 years. And we put the plans in there that we think we're going to need to be able to supply, a viable supply of water for our community 50 years into the future. And one of those strategies is conservation, is continued conservation. But some other things that we're looking at and that we're implementing is the advanced water purification facility, which I don't know if you're aware of it, but that's where we're looking at taking our treated wastewater that's already been cleaned and then basically putting it through another whole set of treatment processes and then putting that back into the distribution system. We're already doing that with our Fred Hervey plant in the Northeast, where we take treated wastewater and we use it to recharge our aquifer. Remember at the beginning of our conversation, I said our aquifers, don't recharge. So we have to physically get in there and recharge them. And we've been doing it for about 30 years with that plant where we recharge the Waco Bolson because we're pulling so much water out of it. So that's another strategy. We're also, like I said, looking at the increased conservation. And we're also looking at we purchased a lot of land with water rights east of Texas, in East Texas, that we will use to import water here to El Paso, but that's probably looking at like in the year 2040, 2050. So those are things that we're looking at to continue to supply water. But as far as we can push out things like the importation, the better, because those kind of water sources are going to cost more. So that's why I said at the beginning, conservation is so important. If we can get everybody on board and just continue that, we can meet water needs for the short term.
Well, and I would think that 30 years ago, if you talked about regenerating wastewater and things like that, people would just go, ew, what are you talking about? But this is, it's a technology I think everybody can kind of get behind because of what we've lived through for the last 30 years. And because I think everybody understands the technology just continues to grow. That part of it is kind of the growth sector for you, if you will, isn't it? Because it's going to get nothing but better and easier to do things like this.
Yes,
it would seem
absolutely. Yeah, and actually what's interesting is the plant that I told you about in the Northeast. It's the Fred Hervey Water Reclamation Facility, and we treat wastewater there to drinking water standards. That's technology from the 80s, and it works fine. It works great.
Cool.
But you can imagine, 30 years later, the technology that we have now, and it's just all the better, and it's not anything new. We're taking technology that we use at our desalination plant, the reverse osmosis membranes, technology that we use at some of our river water treatment plants. And all those processes are going to be in this new advanced water purification facility. And it's really cleans the water to a level that is probably cleaner than bottled water.
Wow.
And so it makes sense, and like you said, it makes sense for El Paso. We live in a desert. We know that we're going to be dealing with drought for years to come. So we need to have that extra source that we can rely on when we're not going to have river water. Right now we rely on the groundwater and the desalination plant, but having that extra source of water, the advanced water purification facility, will even give us more insurance, so to say, for situations like this.
And let me ask about that technology. Is there anything that you can tell us that might be on the horizon for kind of what's next? The next level of all of this is there something that's being talked about that's not necessarily mind blowing because you've already got all these different things going on, but I would imagine that again, this is going to kind of be the growth sector for El Paso Water and for any water utility out there, because there's just got to be some stuff that people are talking about where it's going to be amazing.
It is. It's really going to be a game changer for not only El Paso, but for the rest of the nation. This plant, when we build it, it's planned to, right now it's in design I think it's going to be getting 90 or 80% designed soon. We're trying to get as much funding as we can to minimize the impact on ratepayers. But the plan is to go into construction in the year 2023, 2025, and then it'll be online, shortly after that. But yeah, I mean, you said it. When you're asking what's the next innovative thing, this is it. I get requests to do interviews about it from all over the country. And it really will be the first of its kind. Taking wastewater, treating it to drinking water standards, and just putting it directly into the distribution system.
Wow.
What we've been doing out at Fred Hervey has been happening for a while, and there's cities in California and other parts of Texas that are just looking at doing that. And in the industry, we call it indirect potable reuse, where you basically take that wastewater, treat it, and don't, there's an environmental buffer. They put it into a lake or they put it into the ground.
Right.
Well, this is direct potable reuse, where we basically take it. There's no reason to put it back into the ground to get it dirty again when we know the science is there, when we know it's safe to drink, and we know that we need it. So it'll be a game changer. Once we build it, then it's really going to give other utilities across the country, the leverage to go ahead and try to build something similar in their communities. And really the closest thing to it is in Namibia, Africa right now.
Wow.
That they've had a facility like this. So it's exciting. We're very excited about it. It's a very positive thing for El Paso. We did some surveys about it a few years ago, and overwhelmingly, I was really surprised that people were very accepting of it. I think we had like an 80, 84, 85% of the population when asked, how they felt about a plant that would take the treated wastewater, cleaned up, and if put into the distribution system, they're really accepting of it and think this is a great idea. And I think it goes back to what you're saying. We know our customers, our community know that we live in the desert, and water, is a commodity. We need to use it. We need to be wise about what we use. And so for us, it's, I wouldn't say easier to implement a kind of facility like this, but we definitely don't have some of the public perception challenges that other communities may have.
Yeah, and I think that is really key. I think everybody here kind of gets what's going on, and it's really cool to hear that El Paso Water is kind of leading the way across the nation in something like this. I always figured that, especially in El Paso, things like water, things like solar energy, renewable energy sources, and trying to make water as renewable as you possibly can, that we ought to be a nation leader in these kind of technologies. And it's kind of wonderful to hear that you're pretty close to bringing this online. That's
yes.
It isn't that far away. It's 2021 now. That's only 3 or 4 years in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we just finished doing some interviews with some national correspondents. We had CNN out here, I think maybe a year and a half ago, talking about the project. So yes, it's going to give El Paso a lot of recognition. And I invite you, Duke, when we open up the plant and when we do tours, to come out and to do a taste test and to be one of the first ones out there to sample the water from the facility, because it really will be an exciting time.
Well, you've got my contact info. I am ready to go. Speaking,
yes.
Outstanding. Speaking with Christina Montoya, Communications and Marketing Manager at El Paso Water. And again, as we talk about, I would imagine that new homes especially, the conservation's almost kind of built in. The xeriscaping, things that builders are doing, I'm sure you have their attention. As neighborhoods kind of get built out in Northeast and actually pretty much everywhere, far east, far west, this is something that builders have to have top of mind when they build a new home, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a lot. It's a really good point, because we have seen with a lot of these new homes, the consumption naturally just drops a lot lower than at some of these older homes, because they have the water smart dishwashers and washing machines and, refrigerated air. And, it's those swamp coolers that use so much water, especially during this summertime. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So yes, I mean, we're thankful that these new homes, and that kind of brings me to the point where we're trying to do targeted outreach to some of the homeowners that have these older homes. We did cooperation with El Paso Electric. I think it was early 2000s or late 90s that we gave that refrigerated air rebate, and that really helped a lot bring our consumption down. But yes, if you live in an older home, you may want to consider switching over to that refrigerated air, looking at all of your faucets, your fixtures, making sure they're water smart, making sure you get that water smart dishwasher. All those little things can save you. They may cost a little bit more, in the beginning, but you will see the reward on your bill by using less water, definitely.
Well, that is the bottom line. That is absolutely the bottom line. I would imagine for most of El Paso, because it's certainly the bottom line in the Keith household. Let me ask about your outreach, because I know that part of what you do is reaching out to people through media, through the different interviews you guys are giving, but you also go into the classroom with Willie the Water Drop and are teaching kids around El Paso about how they can conserve too, correct?
Yes. And, it's sad because of, COVID, we had to put a lot of that on hold. We couldn't go into the classrooms anymore. But what we did, and as I'm sure you did, and a lot of other businesses and agencies adapted, and we went ahead and made a lot of videos out of the Water Drop. We have a series of videos on our website, and we have two websites. We have epwater.org and then techh2o.org. TechH2O is our learning center that is devoted completely to educating our young people and our adults about water resources and about conservation. If you haven't been out there, it's on the east side. You should really check it out. It's actually not open to the public right now because of COVID.
Right.
But we're anticipating as things start to get lifted that we will open it back up again. So we went ahead and taped a lot of really engaging, interactive videos featuring Willie talking about where our water comes from, how to conserve water in your home. And so if you're a parent with a school-age child at home and you're running out of things to do, especially this summer, if you want to go to that website, and we have a YouTube channel as well. They're on there. You can watch these videos with your kids and they will be so entertained. We have a lot of other videos on that YouTube channel as well about how our stormwater system works, how our water plants work and how our wastewater plants work, really to help people. We believe that the more that they understand, the more they'll be willing to participate in things like our conservation program. So I encourage you to check that out when you have some time.
And just to touch on, and this isn't necessarily to do with water conservation, although it might, and maybe you can school me here, but I know that part of what you're doing around the city and around the county is building lots of new holding ponds. And I know after the flood of 2006, which we all remember, if you lived here during that time, that was hard. That was hard for a lot of people. We had a basement flood. We had the whole thing, and just a 100-year water event. And it really kind of changed things, I know, especially for El Pasoans, but also for El Paso water too, because I see these holding ponds going up in places where they weren't before. If you talk about that, and I guess, what is the intent, what is the design, and what might you make of this as we proceed?
Well, I'm not an engineer, but
sure,
I'll give you that.
But you play one on radio,
first.
Yeah, okay.
I do understand, and it's actually very interesting, from a layman's person perspective like me. But really, the way El Paso is situated. I talked about we only get 8 to 9 inches of rainfall a year, but when we get it, it can come down in these huge, quick storms. And then we've got the Franklin Mountains right in the middle of the city. So what that happens is it creates this runoff, as you saw, and we saw on the freeway in 2006. And really all of central El Paso was built, it's so, I guess there's so much concrete really, to be honest,
right.
And not enough to hold and collect the stormwater as it comes rushing down the Franklin Mountains. The path really, before everything was built, was for it to come down in arroyos and eventually make its way to the Rio Grande. But, when it stopped by all this development, it just couldn't do it. So that's why when you see big ponds like the Gateway ponds that were not there before 2006, those ones right off of Piedras and Copia area, the huge, gigantic ponds. There's one on the east side and there's one on the west, and they're actually connected by a pipe underground. Many people might not know this. It goes right under I-10.
Oh.
And so when one fills up, it'll just empty out into the other side. So believe it or not, that is really helping us when we have those huge deluge downpours in the summer, which I'm hoping we do get this year because of the drought.
Yes.
But that helps keep I-10 clear.
Sure.
And then we built several other ponds, as you go upstream closer to the Franklin Mountains. There's Morenci Pond, there's Copia, there's a lot of little ones in neighborhoods. The Northeast got a lot of ponds built. We built actually a new pump station right there by the freeway to help, once that water collects, we've got to get it down to the river. So it helps pump some of that water down to the river. So there's been tremendous investment since 2008, since we took over the stormwater utility. And you may not see it all the time. It's hard to appreciate when we've got all these days of sunshine. But when it happens, you'll really see the benefits, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would imagine that is this part of what you use for groundwater? Do you collect this at all to be used elsewhere, or is it just basically trying to get it to the river?
It's basically just trying to get it back to the river.
Got it.
There are
That's cool.
some ponds that, it has to be in a strategic location where the aquifer allows for infiltration. And there are some in some neighborhoods that are not concrete lined. And so that will allow for some of the infiltration. And I can't name them off to you for the life of me right
that's
now.
Fine.
But for the most part, the
people
goal
would just be drawing a big
is
question mark
public
anyway.
safety and getting it to the river, definitely.
Okay, good deal. Speaking with Christina Montoya, the Communications and Marketing Manager at El Paso Water. Very educational and very important as we really hit our hot summer months as people are trying to, just maintain their lawns if you have one. And some of the different things that we're going to have to be dealing with here. But wonderful to know that El Paso Water is kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of this insofar as water utilities across the country. And you're leveraging everything you can to try and make it work in a desert during a drought. And I think that's kind of the bottom line. Christina, I appreciate your time so much today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Our thanks to Christina Montoya, and our thanks to you for listening. I look forward to speaking with you next week. I'm Duke Keith, and this is El Paso Town Square. So long, everybody.